everyone! Today we're going to have some fun playing around with poems as abstract art. And last fall I went to a writer's workshop in Kingston with the poet Stuart Ross. He was holding one of the workshops that I particularly loved. And he asked a thought-provoking question, which was, what if we were to treat a poem like a work of abstract art? And it's funny, but we seldom, if ever, approach writing with that mindset or filter. We typically don't look to writing to appreciate the way the words look on the page, or the way the words sound out loud, or even the way the words might look or sound together, what shapes they might make, or most of those questions. We might ask, how does this writing make us feel, or what is the mood of the piece? But usually the first thing we ask, or the first thing we're looking for, is, what does this piece of writing mean? What's it all about? We want to know, what does it mean and what's it about? So it's kind of fun to go against the grain and instead approach poetry in a very different sort of way. So we're going to do a series of short poetic writing activities today that are just playing around with words, really. So the first one we're going to do is the shortest. It's super minimalist poetry. And the first one we're going to do is writing one word per line. So what you're going to do in the amount of time that I've got blocked out for you, just a couple of minutes, you're going to write just one word per line. And what you're going to do is reject the first word choice each time. So if the word the comes to you, move on. Pick a second or third word. The words can connect or be completely disconnected. Doesn't matter. But the only rules are one word per line and reject your first word choice each time. Okay, have some fun. Go to it. Okay, the next one we're going to do is, again, very short, minimalistic visual poems. So this is all about choosing a word, a couple of words, set of words, something that looks visually interesting to you on the page, whether it's the shape, the sound, the meaning of the words, whatever it is, but it's again very small and it has a visual element. So if it involves some doodling or other kind of scratching on the page, that's good too. I'll show you my playing around with this as an example. Wastrel with astral in it seemed like fun until I discovered I spelled it wrong. Wastrel is not spelled like that. But in any case, no matter. Also, no one now own, which is again, has some kind of a visual element to it that I'm playing around with. And another one that I ended up using for a play title, again, having smothered, mothered, and othered all within one word. So lots of fun things you can do when you're playing around. with the way the words look on the page, or just a single word looks on the page. So again, just a couple of minutes, have some fun. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is popcorn poetry, and I've also heard this one called River of Words, though I'm not sure exactly who that attribution should be credited to. In any case, the rules of this one are that I read from a text, the words pop up at you like popcorn, and you write down those ones that pop out for you down on the page. You can, again, space them however you want. And then afterwards, we will put it through some different versions by imposing some rules on it. So you can definitely use words that are coming from the text, but also if there's one that sparks another idea, feel free to add on, bring your own words into it as well. So either way, you can stick strictly with the words from the original text, or you can use the original plus your own thoughts that come in. So I'm going to read a little bit to you from this book, Zero. I randomly picked one off the shelf, The Biography of a Dangerous Idea by Charles Safe. So I am going to read Grab Your Supplies, Chapter 0, Null and Void. Zero hit the USS Yorktown like a torpedo. On September 21, 1997, while cruising off the coast of Virginia, the billion-dollar missile cruiser shuddered to a halt. Yorktown was dead in the water. Warships are designed to withstand the strike of a torpedo or the blast of a mine. Though it was armored against weapons, nobody had thought to defend the Yorktown from Zero. It was a grave mistake. The Yorktown's computers had just received new software that was controlling the engines. Unfortunately, nobody had spotted the time bomb lurking in the code, a zero that engineers were supposed to remove while installing the software. But for one reason or another, the zero was overlooked, and it stayed hidden in the code. Hidden, that is, until the software called it into memory and choked. When the Yorktown's computer system tried to divide by zero, 80,000 horsepower instantly became worthless. It took nearly 3 hours to attach emergency controls to the engines, and the Yorktown then limped into port. Engineers spent 2 days getting rid of the zero, repairing the engines, and putting the Yorktown back into fighting trim. No other number can do such damage. Computer failures like the one that struck the Yorktown are just a faint shadow of the power of zero. Cultures girded themselves against zero, and philosophies crumbled under its influence, for zero is different from the other numbers. It provides a glimpse of the ineffable and the infinite. This is why it has been feared and hated and outlawed. This is the story of zero from its birth in ancient times to its growth and nourishment in the East, its struggle for acceptance in Europe, its ascendance in the West, and its ever present threat to modern physics. It is the story of the people who battled over the meaning of the mysterious number, the scholars and mystics, the scientists and clergymen who each tried to understand zero. It is the story of the Western world's attempts to shield itself unsuccessfully and sometimes violently from an Eastern idea. And it is a history of the paradoxes posed by an innocent looking number, rattling even this country's brightest minds and threatening to unravel the whole framework of scientific thought. Zero is powerful because it is infinity's twin. They are equal and opposite, yin and yang. They are equally paradoxical and troubling. The biggest questions in science and religion are about nothingness and eternity, the void and the infinite, zero and infinity. The clashes over zero were the battles that shook the foundations of philosophy, of science, of mathematics, and of religion. Underneath every revolution lay a zero and an infinity. Zero was at the heart of the battle between East and West. Zero was at the center of the struggle between religion and science. Zero became the language of nature and the most important tool in mathematics. And the most profound problems in physics, the dark core of a black hole and the brilliant flash of the Big Bang, are struggles to defeat zero. Yet through all its history, despite the rejection and the exile, zero has always defeated those who opposed it. Humanity could never force zero to fit its philosophies. Instead, zero shaped humanity's view of the universe and of God. All right, so I'll stop you there. And now what we're going to do is take a look over your poem, give it a read through, and we're going to experiment with putting it through a few self-imposed rules. So these are activities that you can do on your own and really create any kind of rule for yourself. It's a really fun way to create some interesting nonsense poetry in the process. Let's try a couple. So I'm going to give you 3 suggestions and I want you to try them out. So 1, take the first word from each sentence of your poem, if you do in fact have sentences. If you don't, maybe you could use the first one from each line, and write it out. So this becomes its own minimalist poem. So the first word from each sentence or line. 2, take every second line from your poem and create a new poem. And 3, take every 4th word and make that a new poem. Okay, so you don't necessarily even have to add more to make sense or to make it coherent. Part of the point is to impose this rule and see what comes out of it, right? You might find a really evocative dreamscape or a fun nonsense poem that emerges. If you do want to tweak it a little and add some connecting words or make some sort of sense of it, that's fine too. But first try imposing the rules without any additions and see how that turns out. All right, I'll give you a couple minutes to work on that. Okay. I always really enjoy the nonsense poetry that comes out of that one personally. So I hope you enjoyed that one too. Now, the last activity we're going to do for today is called Writing Between the Lines. And I'm going to be giving you a poem, and you might have already printed it out if you received it as an attachment in today's email. If you haven't, no worries. I will have it up on the screen as well, so that's fine. And your job is to read the poem and then to write a line of your own between each of the lines of Emily Dickinson's poem. So I'm going to give you a few moments, a couple of minutes, and I'd like you to enjoy writing between the lines of Emily Dickinson. Okay, go for it. Okay, great. So now that you've done that, the fun part is to take your poem and cross out Emily Dickinson's original lines and now see what you've got. Read your own poem. If you decide that you love your poem and you want to edit it up and turn this into your own new creation, if you decide to share it with the world, you can always do that and just attribute Emily Dickinson's original as your source of inspiration. Or you can keep it for yourself and enjoy. Once again, if you have any writing that you would like to share, please feel free to do that. I would love to hear from you. And again, any questions or comments are welcome as usual. Take care. Happy writing.